Hi all, Jeanette here, and thanks for visiting the Neal's homestead. Yesterday we had the good fortune to go visit some family members at a baby shower, and while we were gone we got a notification that a dear young man had given us a deer, and we came home and found it hanging on a chain hoist that we always keep up for this purpose in a tree. And today I'm going to show it to you, and we're going to get it skinned and start getting it cut up so that we can grind it. Thanks for joining us. We found the deer hanging high up in this tree with that chain hoist. It's properly tagged, and we're going to start getting it forward a little bit so I can start the skinning process. The deer's lowered down to a point that I can reach it. So I'll cut around that back leg and start loosening the skin. I don't really have a proper skinning knife, but I do have this knife sold by Mossy Oak that is what I'm going to use today for skinning. And then I also have a kitchen butcher knife that I'll use for cutting the meat off, the bones. Actually, this is my first time ever skinning a deer by myself, but I'm going to see how I do. I've usually helped skin the deer. I've helped Jeremiah skin it or Dugan skin it, but I haven't done it by myself. This deer hung here all night, part of yesterday and all night. Yesterday was up around 70 degrees. We'd only got down to 50 overnight, and usually it's good to let a deer hang for a while, but we're having a warm spell. I have the deer mostly skinned, but the way I'm going to process it, I'm not going to go ahead and take the head off or the tail off. What I'm going to do is just cut big hunks of meat off and soak it in salt water for a day or two to take the gaminess out and take any residue blood out, soak it out by the salt, and then I'm going to grind it. I've taken the part of the deer off that I consider good. I don't care about the ribs because they have a lot of fat on them, and deer tallow is just not palatable to me, and there's not that much meat on the ribs. I've taken the meat off of the legs, and I avoid the fore part of both legs some. I trim some off, but they're so full of sinew that it's hard to grind, and I don't appreciate the sinew in it. I do take off the back straps. They're the best meat of the deer. And then I took the tender loins out of the inside of the deer and trimmed here and there, took part of the brisket off or all of the brisket. And so I'm done with this. Because we live far away from other people, I'm okay with just laying this carcass down and letting the dogs and the cats gnaw on it for several days until we're tired of looking at it, and then we'll take it over to where we burn our trash and we'll burn it up and get rid of it that way. I've got all the parts of the deer in the cooler. I'll be adding salt and cold water and keep ice in that for a day or two while the salt does its action of removing the blood and the gamey taste that a deer sometimes has, not always, but sometimes. And then I'll grind it up, and I'll show you that process when it comes to time. So stick around and we'll go farther. Well, it's been a couple of days since I put the deer in this cooler, and I'll just show you what it looks like in the water. You can see down in there how much blood has come out of the meat and just sitting in the water. And that package in there is a package of pork fat that I saved from whenever we butchered the pig last in April. I'm going to add that to the meat. I like I don't like deer fat. It's just too greasy. It feels bad in my mouth, and so I do like pork fat. So I'm going to mix pork fat in with the deer meat when I grind it. Now let's get this red yucky water drained off of here. Well, I got old guy to help me with his lawnmower and his little trailer to bring this over here into so it can drain into our driveway. You need to be really careful where you drain this because it's got a lot of salt in it, and if you put it on the ground where you want something to grow in the near future, it's not going to happen. But in the driveway, we'd kind of like to kill any grass or weeds that are growing in there, so it seemed like a good place to drain it. So let's get this thing drained. I brought out these two splatter screens to kind of act like paddles to hold the meat back so we don't end up dumping it on the ground. This cooler doesn't have any kind of drain hole in the bottom, which would be really nice for this job, although I expect that it would probably get stopped up by the meat. You'd have to reach in there and hold the meat back so it could drain. But anyway, we're going to have to drain it, pour it out over the top. This lid comes off, so that's what I think I'm going to do. Get out of here, cat. When you soak it in the salt water, it soaks all that bloody stuff out of it and actually makes it look as light as pork does, like the loin part of pork. Next, we're going to put some fresh water in there and rinse the excess salt off. We might even do that a couple times. This is the second rinse, and we're still getting some bloody look to it. And I would think I'm not going to taste it, but I'm sure there's still a lot of salt in there. And we'll drain that again. There's still a lot of water standing in this meat in the bowl, so I'm going to pour it into my open sink and let it drain. I'll cut the meat up here in long strips that I can just put down into the grinder that way. And if you've got too much of this kind of stuff with the filmy, sinewy stuff, you ought to take that off as best you can. It tends to stop up the grinder, and it's really quite a pain. So it takes a lot of time to clean it up like that, but up to a point it works better if you do. So strip off sinewy stuff, too much membrane. There's some sinew right there. It's kind of like strings in there, and it really stops up your works whenever you're trying to get it through the grinder. So it's a little bit, deer is bad about this. Pork is a little bit bad, but not so bad. But deer, since I think since they're so active, they have all that parts of their legs, their muscles that makes them stronger and more limber, where pigs just kind of stay close to the ground and walk around. They don't really have to jump over much. Also, it's my opinion that you should cut off as much fat of this as you can, because as I said a while ago, deer fat is not good. There are probably some people who would disagree with me and want it in there, but it's not me. So I'll just get this all chopped up and then we'll get back to you. I've got my meat cut up here. Ooh, that's heavy. And I got my grinder put together, and so I'm going to start grinding. I'm not going to show you the grinding. I just did a video recently about grinding pork, and I did a little bit of detail about the grinder that I use, and I'll put a link to that video right up here so you can go look at that if you'd like. But for now, I'll just grind this up and then I'll show you what I end up with at the end. Well, I enlisted old guy's help, so I'm going to put some in the bag. Check the weight, and then he's going to seal them up for me. I think we can get done a lot quicker than if I'm doing it all by myself. Well, I think I counted 44 4 packages. Some of them are 1 pound, some of them are 3/4 of a pound. Well, that's another job done, and I'm glad it's done. That kind of wore me out today. I still have to clean all up, so I better get at that, and I really appreciate you coming. If you like what you see, then come back again next time. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Bye-bye.